Hello, dreamers, and welcome to this latest bonus collaboration episode. I have a guest host today from the Mysterious Circumstances podcast. You have heard him here on our show several times before. He is Justin Rimmel. Full disclosure, we recorded this conversation about this case late at night, especially late for him because Justin is on Eastern time and I'm on Pacific time. So he's 3 hours ahead of me, and he didn't even get home from work until sometime after 11:30 p.m. And while we did hit most of the important points in this story, there are times when we get ahead of ourselves, and by the last 30 or 40 minutes, you can really start to hear it in our voices that we are both about to nod off. And I started sounding tired and raspy, but we made it almost all the way through. I did have more notes that I wanted to go over. I had no idea, though, that this episode was going to go this long. In order for our meandering, sleepy ramblings to make a little bit more sense, I'm going to go ahead and give you a brief synopsis of the case ahead of our discussion, and then I will play the recording of our conversation for you after that. On the evening of May 31st, 1995, a woman using the alias Jennifer Fairgate checked into a luxury hotel in Oslo, Norway. 3 days later, she was found dead inside her room of a single gunshot wound to the middle of her forehead. Oslo authorities ruled the death a suicide, mainly because she was found alone. There was no indication that she was with anyone, nor was there any indication she was ever in the company of anyone else while she was there at that hotel. And she died behind her hotel room door that generally needs to be locked or can only be locked from the inside. But there were other signs that this may not have been a suicide after all, that Jennifer may in fact have been murdered. If that was the case, then we have a whole bunch of other questions, starting with why. Why was she killed? And if Jennifer was murdered, who did it? And the biggest question of all, it's the biggest mystery that's been hovering around this case ever since it happened back in 1995. Who was Jennifer Fairgate? Because to this day, there has never been anybody identified as having that name matched up to Jennifer's general description and Jennifer's general age range. Nobody knows who she was, or where she came from, or what she was in Oslo for. Nobody knows her real name. Her address was fake. Her phone number was bogus. Her place of work did not exist. Making things even more confusing were the personal effects that were found in the room with Jennifer. Deepening the mystery even more were the things that weren't found in her room. This is a discussion that Justin and I had last week about the mysterious Miss Jennifer Fairgate, the woman in Oslo. Joining me today is Justin. You all know him from being on the show from before. He's one of the sweetest individuals ever, and I love working with him. And he never says no to me, so I'm going to take more advantage of that. So, Justin, thank you so much for agreeing to talk to me about this case. It's very complicated and confusing. So, how are you tonight? Tell us about you. Tell the listeners about yourself, about your shows, and I'm sure they all know you. My listeners know you more than they know me.
Well, yeah, it's hard to say no when you literally did all the work. So, like I had told Roseanne for the listeners, I'm like, she sends me these notes. She's like, add on whatever you need to. And I read through them and I'm like, what do you want me to add? You literally put everything in there. But, yeah, I'm Justin. I host Mysterious Circumstances, which Covers weird unsolved crimes, regular unsolved crimes, paranormal events, weird mysterious artifacts, pretty much everything that I find interesting. Also historical figures. Me and you did a Bugsy Siegel episode together.
I love that.
Which was fun. That was a great episode. And I know your longtime listeners know me.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them don't think I'm sweet, but it is what it is.
Yeah, it is what it is. And your listeners, some of them don't like me either. They want to hear your nice, deep, soft country voice.
Yeah. So yeah, they don't mind it too much. But
no, they don't. You're an easy listen. That's for
yeah.
sure.
They always say, "Hey, it's a compliment, but you put me to sleep, dude."
It is a compliment. That's what my whole show is about, falling asleep, because I love sleeping. So
that's the way to do it.
Okay, so this case today is out of the country. I don't do very many international cases, and this one I saw an episode of Unsolved Mysteries a couple of years ago during COVID, and I was like, I need to cover that, and I need Dustin to come along with me. The case we're going to cover today happened all the way over in Europe, in Norway, the end of May of 1995, in their capital city of Oslo. What was then known as the Oslo Plaza Hotel, today it's called the Radisson Blu Plaza Hotel. It opened about 5 years earlier in March of 1990. It has 37 floors. The hotel is Oslo's second tallest building. The first three floors are the lobby, restaurant, conference rooms, and there's a swimming pool, jacuzzi, bar, restaurant, and it was considered to be one of the higher end hotels for important clientele, rich people, VIPs, whatever. On Monday, May 22nd, 1995, a woman who identified herself as Jennifer Fairgate called the Oslo Plaza Hotel and made a reservation for a room with a check-in date for 9 days later on Wednesday, May 31st. The same person called back the hotel on check-in day to confirm the room reservation. She showed up at the hotel during one of their busiest periods, as 3 airliners had apparently just all near simultaneously deplaned. It's been reported that the first phone call to make the hotel reservations, Jennifer spoke English. In the second one that she called back when she was to confirm her reservation, she was said to have spoke German. According to those who took these calls, they said whatever Jennifer spoke, English or German, at no time did it seem she had any accent. So what I wanted to ask you, what did you think that meant? Like, what does no accent mean to you?
When I read that, I perceived it as that she spoke perfect German or she spoke perfect English. Whether it's right or not, I have no idea. I wish they would have kind of given better details about what they meant by that, but that's kind of how I took it. But how did you perceive that?
Honestly, when I'm thinking about just our country here in the lower 48, I feel like we're the side of the country that has no accent. Like you have an accent in the Northeast, an accent in the South, the Midwest, and then you get over to, on this side of the Colorado River, and we're just like, there's no accent. You have an accent. But
a little bit, yeah.
A lot of it.
A little bit.
I mean, but when you talk to somebody from California, do we have accents?
I've heard that. When I lived there, I would hear that a lot because they would immediately know that I was not from California.
Totally, absolutely. And so when I went to Texas, I definitely felt foreign. I did. I totally felt like, because they were saying stuff like, oh, is this all y'all's? And I was like, what? I was like, those are words. Okay, y'all's. Those a group, mean us. And he was like, no, y'all's. It's possessive. Like, this is, you mean, oh, is this mine?
That's exactly how it goes.
I was like, that's not English.
Yeah.
Oh, but no, I didn't know what the no accent thing meant. So did she speak English as if she had no German accent? Or did she speak German with no American accent or no Norwegian accent? I didn't know what no accent meant. it's all relative, I think. So it was said in that second call to confirm the reservation that Jennifer said that Lewis Fairgate would be checking in also. This person, I don't think ever existed. I'm not sure. It's weird that she gave it and it doesn't exist and there's no confirmation of his existence.
Well, I don't know. We were talking a lot before recording, and maybe she was planning on meeting somebody there and wanted to give like a fake name for that person as well. Maybe if they were questioned, it would be perceived as they were husband and wife, if it ever came up in conversation, so that she could, go back to the front desk and be saying, well, I mean, I called, I told you, this person was coming. This is my husband or father, or whatever the case might have been. But I can't say for sure if that person ever existed, or if maybe she was planning on somebody else meeting up with her there.
Possibly.
So I don't know.
It doesn't seem like something you would do, because part of my theory is that she did go there to possibly commit some kind of act of self-harm.
Mm-hmm.
But why would she? Here's what my thing was. I talked to you about like traveling alone.
Yeah.
And I was telling you how I was looking at your show and it was like 1,900 miles away. And I was like, oh, I could drive that. And then I second guessed myself and I was like, no. So I'm going to get to like Colorado and then the other states that are rectangular shaped. And then I get up to, and then I'm going to get to some lakes like over here. And then there's like Illinois and it looks almost the same as Indiana. And do I know where I'm going? And I'm going to freak out. Traveling alone is a scary thing. And so I thought maybe she gave a name to let everyone know that she wasn't alone.
Yeah, that's probably a possibility, especially as a female.
Like if anyone's talking to me when I'm not unsolicited, like, conversation starter, and I'm like, oh, like I have a boyfriend or I'm married or whatever, I can say, even though it's a lie.
Yeah.
And,
well, you give the perception as, somebody's waiting for me at home, dude.
Exactly. Yeah. No, I say that. So that's what I thought maybe she did. Like maybe she started to feel nervous about her situation, being there by herself. Maybe she wanted to let it be known that my man's coming with me,
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, and I may have even said to people, like I've sat at places in restaurants and said, yeah, I have company coming, so that I could just be left alone.
Oh, for sure.
To have a seat open, so that's what I thought that was.
I go to restaurants a lot alone, and I don't even tell them that. I'm like, you can sit beside me, but I ain't going to talk to you, man. I'm sitting here, I'm doing my own thing. I want to be left alone, and for the most part, it's not usually too bad. But yeah, I mean,
talking like ghosts and haunted houses, then you're all ears, right?
Well, what'll happen is I've had it happen one time where I'm sitting there and I'm looking through the case that I'm currently working on with the university and stuff. I was looking through autopsy photos is what was going on, and the person beside me is like, dude, what are you looking at?
Autopsy photos? Like, oh, yes. You were at a bar having like a drink.
Yes.
And you were looking at your phone instead of scrolling on normal stuff like normal people do, like social media and TikTok. You're looking at autopsy photos.
Yes, that is correct. That's exactly how that panned out. I will say this, though. That person moved about 3 seats down after that. So it served its purpose. I was left alone, and the bartender who works there, she knows what I do. So she just started laughing. She's like, I just love seeing that, like, because it's not the first time it's happened. But
that's great. I would have not moved. I would have been like, okay.
It's a good move.
Thing is, you
might want to use that.
Okay. But just to have my phone open with dead bodies and shit.
Pretty much, yeah. Pretty much.
My God, I don't like looking at autopsy photos. I like freaked out on this case because I did look at all the pictures.
It's rough sometimes. It is pretty rough sometimes. I will admit. There's some. It's hard.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So where are we?
Okay.
I will edit all of this crap out. Or no, they want to hear us talk. Everybody loves you, Justin. Everybody
loves you too.
Okay, so Jennifer Fairgate she checked into the Oslo Plaza Hotel on the evening that she was scheduled to be there at about 10:40 p.m. But whether she checked in alone or if she checked in with Lewis Fairgate isn't clear. But what is known is that during that time that Jennifer checked in, it was very busy in the hotel lobby. There were 3 arriving planes that had just landed with people flooding into the hotel from the airport, most of them trying to check in also. The reason why this is important is because later it's going to be revealed that Jennifer was checked into her hotel room and given her keys and provided the hotel with no forms of identification and no form of payment. In various articles and forums, the business of the hotel lobby that night, the rush to get people checked in, overlooking their regular check-in protocols, all of that was blamed on the failure to take down and verify her identification, her information, and her payment information. So what do you think about that? She provided them with some information, but she didn't have to give her credit card. This is 1995.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit different back then, too.
That's true. That's true. I mean, I wish that would happen to me at a hotel where they're just like, yeah, here's your keys, dude. Go to your room. And it's like, right. Oh, sweet, you know? But, I mean, it being 95, I mean, me and you were old enough. Like 95, you check into a hotel, you still needed ID and, had to pay up front.
When I came to Vegas in the 90s on my own without my parents, I brought my parents' players' cards. Their VIP club cards, because I got comp for everything. My parents came here all the time. So I would get their cards and I'd be like going because they never checked. All I needed was my players club. Now you need to like have everything with you, your ID, like your social security, and you have to have all of these credentials. You have to prove who you are, give a DNA sample before they even like scan your card.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, and it's hard. You can't get away. But I use my parents' comps at hotels all the time, and they never checked ID.
Yeah, that's true. And like I could see like a higher end hotel getting that mad rush of people off the plane, and it's when you're dealing with that many people, I could see that being a possibility. And not to foreshadow anything, but there's a possibility. Maybe she was one of those people on the plane, I don't know. But the fact that she got in with not having to show her ID, not even having to pay up front I thought that was pretty interesting because she just snuck her right on in there.
She did. And she, like I said, she might have had her own reasons, had her own intentions, because not only did she slip past them without giving them ID and payment information, the information she did give them was all fake.
Yes.
So she had her own agenda. Whatever was going on with the hotel and whatever was going on with her, it seemed like the perfect storm for all of this shit to happen just like it did.
Mm-hmm.
Like
absolutely.
Confusion. So,
and even if she did give them like a fake name or something, I mean, I'd say probably 90% chance she had fake identification and everything, like just literally went 100%. Just
never was asked for it.
Yeah, never, literally never. But I bet if she was, she had like, all the fake stuff. Good to go.
Oh, man.
Because somebody without tags on their clothing, not to do any foreshadowing, but somebody who has no tags on their clothing probably is up to something shady and probably has some fake IDs.
Justin's a little bit ahead of us here, but then
I am
the first the no tags thing.
We can cut that out. We can cut that out.
No, we won't. It's good. I think there's people who are familiar with this. The Unsolved Mysteries was pretty popular once it came out.
Oh, for sure.
So, no, like we'll get to that, but the tags being cut out of all of her clothes and all the identifying markings being removed from everything is very bizarre. And I don't even know what that means. This is the very first case I've ever heard of that happening. Maybe you've heard of it, but
well, I think the what was it, the other case with the Isdall woman.
Oh yeah,
I think she had all her tags cut out as well.
She did. And rubbed out, like the whatever was on or printed, it was obliterated.
Yeah.
So
which is weird.
It is weird.
There's like a whole spy network going on over there or something. I don't know.
What are they spying for, though?
I have no idea. I didn't think anything was that exciting over there, to be honest with you. You know?
Either. It seems like a randomly weird thing to be spying about, but
Yeah.
I don't know. So the contact information that Jennifer provided when she checked in, her address she gave was 0748 Rue de la Stay, Verlaine, Belgium. And the phone number she left was, the international code was 3268326548. And the 32 is international code for Belgium. So there seems to be this Belgium connection throughout. She listed her birth date as August 23rd, 1973, which would have made her 21 years old at the time that this story is taking place. The company she listed as her employer was called Cyprus Belgia. It would turn out that the road in Verlaine that she put does not exist. The phone number does not exist. There is no one named Jennifer Fairgate. Anywhere in Belgium, there is no one with that birth date that matches Jennifer Fairgate's general description and age. There is no record of this woman anywhere in Belgium. No record of a Jennifer Fairgate anywhere, in fact, in the world. Nothing through Interpol, no missing persons, no passports, nothing traveling around Europe, and no trace of this woman. What do you make of that?
I will say, like, through a phone call, and even just speaking without like providing any type of identification, you know, somebody could have heard it wrong. You know, maybe that wasn't exactly her last name. Maybe it was spelled differently. Maybe it could be so many freaking things. I will be honest, like, she looked older than 21 though. Like, that was kind of my thing. Do you think so too?
A little bit. Not necessarily. When I looked at her skin, her facial features, her eyes, just the little details, I thought she was very young. Her clothing, her style, her clothing, her hair is older.
Yes. That's kind of where I was more leaning to, I suppose.
That's where I guess the confusion can come in, because I really looked at her to try to look for makeup, and I looked so closely at it. It was such like, she looked so perfect in death, you know? I know they photoshopped like the injury off of her head. We're getting ahead again, but I couldn't tell. Those pictures were not great, and I feel really sad and frustrated that they thought this looked like a suicide, and I could see that, why they would think that. So the investigation kind of crumbled from there.
Yeah, it was I think it was just to go in there, take some photos, because that's our job.
Yeah.
I don't think they put a lot of thought or energy or detail into what they were doing. And I think possibly that in the long run, you know, wasn't a good thing, because even though it is questionable, highly questionable, that any kind of future investigation, if the case remained open or if somebody else ended up getting it opened up again, that's going to hinder it. You know, it's just going to hold it back.
And I don't think that the police are to blame. I can totally see why this looked like a suicide.
Oh, for sure.
It had a lot of earmarks of it, and that's the confusing part. And that's why I'm still not completely over her being the one to want to take her own life, but something else happening and getting in the way of it going down the way that she had planned. And for the same thing for whoever, you know, intervened on her plans. But okay, so I guess now we're going to get into the key card swipes. I believe there were only a total of 5.
Correct.
So that would mean that one key card was used to get into the room only 5 times across 3 days.
Yes.
Yeah. So when Jennifer checked in, according to the timelines that have been put together in various articles about the story, some reports say that Jennifer checked in alone. Other reports that she was with a man who was between the age of 25 and 40, but the existence of this man has never been confirmed, and he's never been identified. And when Jennifer checked in, she was given 2 key cards. We do have the key card log, which can tell us when the key cards were used to unlock the hotel door from the outside. That is just about the most accurate information in this whole entire story, right? Those times that those keys were swiped.
Yeah, I mean, I'm thankful for that.
Yeah.
But everything else is just highly questionable. And
It's frustrating.
It's nice to actually have that,
to know.
that factual knowledge, I guess you could say.
Yeah. It's really the only fact, except, what the coroner was able to tell you. But so we have the log and we'll go over that. I read one article that said only one of the key cards was ever used. And then later on in my research, I saw that one of the key swipes was on the second card.
Okay, because I heard both things too. And usually when I come into a situation like that, I try to go with what is most. Like, how many times you have both sides of the story. If you hear one more than the other, I try to lean more towards that. Like,
that would be the one card, right?
Yeah, that would be the one card.
Same
and
here.
Like, it's the same thing with the people who reported her coming in. Some of them saw her with a male, some of them didn't.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm not exactly sure why these other people would make that up. You know what I mean? Unless it was after the fact and they knew that she had used a male's, fake name as well. Mm-hmm. So I kind of lean both ways on that, but
I did see the one key card, the only key card, only one of them used more frequently than the two.
Especially if they're together, or if she is with a male. We don't even know for sure.
Yeah, and if somebody's in the room with you, you don't necessarily need your key card. You just
Exactly.
Or they leave the door ajar so you can get in,
Yep.
The first time any key card was used to enter the hotel room was at 10:44 p.m. on Wednesday, May 31st. That would be right after she checked in. She went upstairs, used the card to access the room. After checking in the second key card swipe, according to the reports, she came back down into the lobby to exchange money around 12:20 in the morning. So did you read that?
Yeah, I read that too. And I don't know. I don't know.
Randomly
it's
weird thing to do in the middle of the night.
It's random. Mm-hmm. And I mean, if some of this was planned and say she planned on going there to harm herself, why is she even exchanging money? Like, what's the whole point of that? But the fact she does it in the middle of the night when probably it's the least amount of employees or people being around is mm-hmm. pretty interesting, I think.
Why not do it while you were already down there too?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and we don't know the currencies, but it looks like before the Europeans came out with the euro, that, their countries are small and kind of sort of close together. It would be like having to go from state to state to state here and have to change your money every time you cross the state border,
Mm-hmm.
I guess that's more common there, but now that everybody has euros, right? So it's just one money. That was the second key card swipe, was to come back from exchanging money. That happened at 12:21 a.m. and that would have been the next day, June 1st. The third time the key was used to enter the hotel room was on Thursday, June 1st at around 8:34 a.m. It's been speculated that this could have been Jennifer returning from grabbing breakfast or a coffee. This key card would not be used to enter the hotel room for another 24 hours. In the meantime, the hotel housekeeping staff accessed Jennifer's room on Thursday, June 1st at 12:50 p.m. So it's about 4 hours later. Mm-hmm. They noted that the room was vacant. The beds had already been made, most likely never been slept in. They appeared to be made the way the hotel housekeeping specifically does. You know how they have their ways of tucking that stuff in there so you can't even get it out. They said that there were some women's clothing items in the room that would later on be missing. So this means that in this 4-hour window of time on Thursday morning, after her first night there, Jennifer left her hotel room and her key was not used to unlock the door until the following morning, which would have been Friday, June 2nd at around 8:50 p.m., meaning the fourth key card swipe didn't happen until a day later. So where was she all day? Where did she go?
Honestly, I have no idea. Like, I tried speculating on that, mm-hmm. but there's just no a good logical explanation that I can personally think of to where she's gone for like 24 hours. Like, if you're going somewhere for that long, why are you even getting a hotel room, you know?
Then there could be somebody's in the room, and when she comes and goes, she could just knock and be let in.
Honestly, that's true. That's a good
Mhm.
point.
So when it comes to what the housekeeping staff witnessed, and I'm very, very suspicious of everybody that works at this hotel. So the
I'm
person,
suspicious of a lot of people at this hotel. I tell you.
yeah, yeah. I think the staff is in cahoots with everybody, but that's kind of like that has kind of morphed into my own personal opinion because I hadn't read that anywhere else as being some sort of inside job, you know?
Yeah.
If you work in a hotel and it's big and it's busy and there's no, accountability, if you can get the security guard, the housekeeping, and the front desk all in line with you, you guys can make some money, you
I
know?
mean, yeah, you're not wrong, but it's given the circumstances of what's going on, like I don't know how lucky I could get to walk into a hotel room or be involved in a hotel type business and just be like, hey, there's this fake person with a fake name in this room. We're going to do some bad stuff to her. I'm going to give you $100 or whatever the case might be. You know, like, I don't
Yeah.
know. There's just so much weird stuff going on in this case.
Because the security guard is the most suspicious to me because
100%.
he didn't do very security guardy things.
No,
Not at all.
yeah.
At least
It's
not
like
a
he
kind
was
of
just
security guard that I would want protecting, like where I was staying.
absolutely not. I'd fire that guy.
Yeah, he didn't
For
do a
sure.
good job.
No.
So, what the housekeeping staff had witnessed that day. So, the person in charge of cleaning the 28th floor during the time that Jennifer was a guest at the hotel, his name was Vigdis Valo, or her name, sorry. She, along with another coworker, she was training, had cleaned the room. So there was two of them there, and it was empty. So Jennifer wasn't there. Vigda said that her trainee worked on cleaning the bathroom while she worked on cleaning the room. She said that as they were cleaning, she finished a little bit earlier than her trainee, so she waited for her to finish. She glanced down at a pair of shoes underneath a shelf in a closet. When Vigdis was shown a picture of the shoes that Jennifer had on at the time of her death, she said that those were not the shoes that she saw. She pointed out that Jennifer's shoes were very pretty, but they were plain and nondescript. The shoes that she had seen in the hotel closet stood out to her because they were very nice and colorful, and that she would want a pair like them for herself. She even said that she went to go look inside the shoe to check the name on the tag, but all these years later, she says she doesn't remember the name brand of the shoes. The article on that website, that vg.no, said that if Vigdis's account is accurate, then that would mean among the things that went missing from Jennifer Fairgate's hotel room would be a really nice, colorful pair of shoes. But the only shoes that were in the hotel room were the ones that were on her feet. So, like, what do you think? Tell me your opinion. I want your opinion first. I'll tell you what I think.
All right. So I'm kind of I don't want to say a detail oriented person, but I'm very observant. So if I had a job like cleaning hotel rooms, I would definitely be observant. And if I'm not going to lie, this might sound weird, but if there was like a t-shirt or something that like was awesome, I'd be like, oh man, I wonder where they got that, you know, or I'm not much into shoes, but I can kind of like see where she's coming from with that, but I don't know where.
I'm
like
nosy
maybe
too.
yeah, nosy. That's
I'm
the word I
nosy,
was gonna
yeah.
say. You know, it's like you can't in a job like that, you can't help but notice things. You know what I mean? And it just some people are be like, oh, mind your own business, and it's like, dude, it's not even about being nosy. Sometimes it's about just being observant to your surroundings. And if it's your job to clean a hotel room, you're going to notice things. So the fact that the shoes disappeared, like, I don't think the housekeepers are lying per se. I think those shoes just ended up missing. And I think there's a possibility, like when she was gone for that 24 hours, or, didn't use the key card for 24 hours, because obviously she wasn't in the room when housekeeping got there. So maybe she was in another room in the same hotel as somebody else, and maybe that's where those pair of shoes ended up. But I don't know. I'm hardcore speculating on that. So
yeah. Well, I don't believe the housekeepers at all.
Here we go. The reason we like doing episodes together.
I don't believe a single word that they say.
Why not?
Because, some of that, maybe it's going to play into my own theory of when I was working on the story, what I developed or what I thought could have possibly happened. It sounds to me like a made-up story, and I don't know anything about this housekeeping staff member, but I do know a little bit about Jennifer.
Okay.
And from the very, very little that I know that she doesn't have anything colorful in her wardrobe.
That's true.
Not one
that's a good point.
Thing that's colorful. See, you didn't even think of that, did you?
But why would a housekeeper just randomly make that up and be detailed about it?
Everything that Jennifer had was either black or gray, right?
Yes.
Almost everything. Almost all the tags were cut off of Jennifer's articles of clothing, and that included the insole tags of the shoes that she was wearing when she died.
That is a good point.
But look, if that did happen, if that housekeeper did see another pair of shoes and did try to look for the brand name tag and found that the tags had been removed, she would have remembered that detail.
That's also true. But why would she randomly make it up, though? To get attention, or?
I don't have all the answers, Justin.
Well, I'm just saying you might be swaying me, because that is a very good point, that her entire wardrobe is black and gray. Like, so there's no color.
If I saw something, I was like, oh, where did these come from? I don't even know if I honestly would be able to identify where I could get a pair of shoes if I looked into an insole. And because there's a whole bunch of the thing is, I'm also very simple. I wear like Nikes and Converse, that's it. So
I'm an Adidas guy, so I see those 3 stripes, I know what's going on. Yeah. But I mean, if you know the brand of the shoe, that could also
that's the thing.
help you out.
This is Europe, and they're very high fashion, and there's
bougie.
Not that it's not like that here, but I mean, when we're traveling, are we wearing fancy shoes and high heels? I don't.
No, I have a live show in Detroit in like 4 days, and I'm going to wear the same Adidas that I wear every day to work. I do not care.
I did. Yeah. I remember you and talking to you and Melissa about that and how you were hiking in your Adidas. But,
I know. She was impressed. She's like, this guy's a smoker. He's not even out of breath. And he's going up the side of this little mountain with his Adidas on. I'm like, yeah.
I was re-listening to some of that episode because I had recommended it to somebody. And it was the part where we were talking about going up the hill. And you were like, if you're in a Hyundai, you ain't getting up that hill.
That's true, though.
And I was like, I drive a Hyundai.
Yeah, you ain't getting up that hill.
I fucking seriously drive a Hyundai. So it's okay. Whatever. I look good in it. So.
That's all that matters. That's all that matters. That and gas mileage at this point.
It's red and it's pretty. And all right. So where was I? Yeah, I made some good points, didn't I?
No, you actually did. With her wardrobe, she's not going to wear colorful shoes with a wardrobe like that. And I honestly did not consider that. So
no, you didn't.
You got me on that one.
You're going to think of some things that maybe I haven't considered, but
I'm hoping so, but I doubt it.
I'm just looking at this because I tell you, the only other podcast hosts that I've listened to that have covered this have been men, and they haven't even come close to considering other things.
Female perspective is extremely important.
And so is the male perspective at times.
That's true.
Okay, so if all the tags were cut off, and she looked at the name, she tried to look for the brand of the shoe, and it's been removed, she would have said that to police. I tried to see the shoe, but the tags were all cut out, which was kind of a weird thing. Why would the housekeeper make up a story like this? You asked me that.
Yes.
It could only play into, this being in on some funny business going on in the hotel with,
True.
like, my inside job. Travelers are targets. They just are. They always have been. They've been targeted for their money, their jewelry, they're traveling. They have, if you're traveling, that means you have money, right?
Usually, yeah. I mean, especially at a high-end hotel like that.
This was a high-end hotel.
So. Yeah. I mean, I've seen the movie Hostel, so like I am cautious about traveling in Europe. But yeah, you might end up in some, weird dungeon getting tortured for money or whatever. But it's the observation. The part that gets me though is that she specifically says that the tags were removed, and like her other shoes, the tags were removed. And
she didn't say that it was though. She said she just looked at the tags to see the brand, and she said,
"Oh, got you."
She couldn't remember what the brand was. So
okay, that is my bad.
No, it's okay. This is where I started to get into this whole thing, like she's telling lies because she's trying to cover up something that she's doing wrong. Maybe she's stealing stuff from hotels.
Honestly, not out of the realm of possibility. There are some shady housekeepers out there.
That's why there's safes in hotels. So this is like 30 years ago almost, the story has taken place, and there's a lot more oversight now, obviously. And it would be pretty easy to get away with like some sort of, what I'm thinking is some sort of in-house organized scheme to try to skim money from cash customers type of thing. Things changed after 9/11. So
for sure.
This is before then. So I just have this feeling that there was something nefarious going on with the hotel staff. And it started with that security guard who supposedly knocked on Jennifer's door and then heard a gunshot. And again, we're getting ahead of ourselves here.
Yeah.
It's the biggest thing that I'm hung up on is what the security guard did. So Jennifer, she extended her stay. I guess apparently her reservation was for shorter than it was, and then she added on a day or two. There was nobody in the hotel room at the time the housekeeping came. That's the only time housekeeping came, because after that, she put her do not disturb placard up.
Yes.
And I think the housekeeping is what triggered that, because she didn't think of it, because housekeeping will just come in.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I'm big on that. Like if I stay at a hotel more than a day, I always put the do not disturb, and I just tell them, don't even bother coming in. Like, there's no sense in you remaking the bed. I'm just going to screw it up again, or whatever the case might be. It's like,
I want the bed remade and fresh and clean towels and everything. I'll leave. I'll take myself. I'll be like, please clean my room, and I'll leave them a good tip too.
Yeah. If it's just me, I already know they're going to provide like 3 or 4 towels, like all that stuff. So it's like, I know I got enough for a couple days.
So nobody was in the hotel when housekeeping came. That meant she came back sometime that morning between those 4 hours, and then she didn't come back again until in the evening of Friday, June 2nd. And when she returned, she added 2 days onto her stay, but again, she still had not provided any form of ID. That night, room service was ordered and delivered about 12 hours later that same day, and it was the only food that she was known to have officially eaten across these 3 days. And she gave a pretty generous tip apparently as well. Phone records show that Jennifer tried to make 2 phone calls to phone numbers that did not exist in the area code that she was trying to call. So that's weird too. It's like she's non-existent. Her address, phone number, birth date, who she is, job, everything doesn't exist. And then she tries to make phone calls to numbers that don't exist.
I don't know. Maybe she forgot the exact phone numbers when she tried to call or something, but
the 2 numbers were 1 digit off. So they think she tried one and then tried another and then gave up. So
I mean, maybe there's just so much weird stuff going on with this.
Right.
It's like,
I know.
It's a good one, Roseanne.
I know. I gotcha, huh?
Yeah.
I'm gonna get you again. I'll find another one. Don't worry. There's plenty.
I'll be prepared. I'll be
Now
waiting.
now that I know that you're a little bit hungry for content.
Well, now I'm gonna find one for you too.
You know what?
Because actually, I already got one.
You send me like names, like case names, and I'll look it all up and research it. I like the research part of this too. So
I usually do. Some days it's easier than others.
It's just the most time-consuming part of it.
100%. Yeah.
So yeah, the 2 digits were off. So it might have been her trying to make a call. She just couldn't remember her number. Both on Friday and Saturday, a TV show was purchased on pay-per-view. What that TV show was, what language it was in, I don't know.
How do they not know that? You know?
Because they jumped the gun and closed this case out prematurely, I think.
Yeah, I mean, you're not wrong there. Yeah, but it's like, dude, like that stuff is documented, like it's digital.
That's what I'm saying.
They know when the key cards are getting swiped. Why don't they know what she's ordering on pay-per-view?
Inside job. You have people in every aspect of the hotel. You have someone in security, someone at the front desk.
I wonder if it wasn't TV. Maybe it was porn, and they just didn't want to say anything. And I'm not trying to be like, rude about it, but
I did think that too, because who orders pay-per-view in a hotel room unless it's porn?
Seriously. Seriously.
You're right.
No, it's yeah, it is what it is,
So, no, God, I wish I looked into that more, but there's no record of what she ordered. Yeah. So,
okay.
Are you still good? Are you getting sleepy? Or
no, I'm good.
Okay.
If you're good, I'm good.
I'm good.
Okay.
All right. So the 5th key card swipe to enter the hotel happened a little more than 2 hours later at 11:03 a.m. 9 hours later at 8:06 p.m., Jennifer ordered room service. That room service was delivered 17 minutes later at 8:23 p.m. The hotel employee who made that delivery said that the room appeared tidy and that the bed was made. Jennifer appeared to be alone, and the meal was for one. It consisted of some sausages, potato salad, and it looked like to me like a side salad or maybe some garnishment. The partially eaten plate was still in the room an entire day later after it was ordered. Did you look at those pictures?
Yeah.
Of the food? Okay. So when Jennifer Fairgate opened the door for her room service, she gave the hotel employee who delivered the food a 50 kroner note as a tip. And after making note of the tidy room and some clothes that would later turn up missing, the hotel employee left Jennifer with her food, and this would be the last verified sighting of Jennifer alive. Keycard swipe number 5 would also be the last one recorded by the lock on the hotel room door. That's pretty cut and dry. Is there anything in there that stood out to you?
Just in this time frame, she really hasn't eaten much from what it seems, with the amount of time that she's been there.
Right.
I would have done eating probably 6-7 meals by now,
Okay, so 24 minutes, the food delivery came. 24 minutes after Jennifer's food was delivered to her room, at 8:57 p.m., someone at the front desk noticed that there was no form of payment that had been provided by the occupant of Jennifer's room. So an employee at the hotel registration sent a text message that was delivered to the hotel room's TV set. That's something that's happened. Have you ever known that to have happened? To get some?
Not in 95. Not in 1995.
That's like kind of old fashioned by 95.
Like a text to anywhere in 1995.
It was an electronic message that flashed on your screen. So you have to understand that these hotels, they have their own in-house advertisements, right? Mm-hmm. They put up their menu. They say, "Oh, go dine at this restaurant. Go, to this nightclub." They'll have all those things. They probably program the TVs to do this stuff.
Gotcha.
I'm not sure, not completely. I called it a text because I don't know what else to call it.
Probably like some kind of computerized alert or something.
Yeah.
Okay, I could see that.
If Jennifer were to turn the TV on, or when she turned it on, then she would have been alerted to a new message from the hotel room's front desk to contact her about her growing hotel bill. The occupant of the room used the remote control to acknowledge the message by hitting OK. And then I assume that it cleared this. I feel like that this message is something that appeared across your TV show.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I imagined happening. So this was the very first attempt that anyone had made to contact Jennifer about her bill. The next activity related to Jennifer that we know of was a second TV text message that was sent to the hotel by the front desk the following evening at about 7:30 p.m., again asking Jennifer to contact the front desk about her hotel bill. Again, the occupant of the room cleared and clicked out of the message by tapping OK on her remote control. The front... What are you laughing at?
How have they not sent somebody there to kick her out at this point? Like,
inside job.
I'm telling you, man. Like,
That's what I'm saying. They're in on this.
How is she still allowed to be here at this point?
Because I think she's a cash customer, and these people want that cash going into their pockets and not into the cash register.
I will admit it was nice back at that time period. 'Cause me being 42, like, I remember being able to pay cash for a hotel room.
Yeah.
And it was nice. Like, you didn't have to do anything with your card, nothing. You just walk up, show your ID, pay some cash, you're good to go.
I mean, are you talking about hourly places?
Both.
Okay. All right.
But like, it was just, I mean, it was convenient sometimes, you know. Like,
I remember that too. I remember that too.
Yeah.
So. And I still carry cash. I'm still not used to not carrying cash.
I always have cash. I always have at least like $100 on me, because you just never know. And cash is still king. I don't care what anybody says.
Yeah, well, I live in this town, so cash is everywhere. And I have to have cash. I just don't feel like, what if my phone breaks? I lose my phone, my cards won't work, and I'm freaking out and I need help, you know?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And it's like,
I need help all the time.
in constant need.
I need to pay people off to help me.
Yeah.
So,
inside job.
Inside job. That's what you want to know, the answer to how did this shit happen? Inside job. Okay, so the next activity, text message cleared and clicked it out. The front desk staff waited about 20 minutes to hear from Jennifer or anyone from the hotel room, but they didn't. So they decided to send up a security guard to her room. And this is where, for me, the story kind of goes off the rails. And I don't believe anything that happens I don't believe anything in the story except this woman's not around anymore. And
this dude is by far the shadiest individual.
I don't like him. Inside job.
Yeah.
20 minutes after the TV message was cleared by the OK button on the remote control at 7:50 p.m., the front desk went ahead and sent a security guard to Jennifer's room to knock on her door to try to make direct contact with her. When the security guard arrived at the hotel room door, he knocked. Nothing was ever said by either him or anybody on the other side of the door. But within a very short period of time, and it's my impression that this was just within seconds of his knock, that he heard a gunshot come from inside the hotel room. Do you agree with me that this security guard should have been having a radio on him? Like
100%. Yeah.
So this is where I'm all tripped up on this guy. Like, why didn't you just radio? Like, go to the side, you know, like they do on TV. You hear a gunshot, like, what? And you back up and you go to draw your gun, you know, do all the dramatic stuff and just, you know, keep an eye on the place until you figure out what's going on. Why would you, if you're having an active shooter, why would you leave?
Yeah, it's so odd. And I mean, I can understand him going up to the room, because at this point she has acknowledged the fact that she still needs to pay her hotel bill, but she hasn't done anything about it. So I can understand why a security guard would go up there. But what comes after the gunshot is my whole thing. And the fact that he didn't radio anything in, because, you know, in a high-end place like this, you know damn well that there are other security guards there with radios, you know?
Right. And I don't know how they work it out, but I kind of got the impression that maybe this was his floor, or if there's like some sort of seniority, but they sent him up there, and then he left, and that's just where I start to think that there's something going on with this hotel. According to the security guard, after he heard the gunshot, instead of using his radio to call for backup or even seeking out to use, even if they didn't have a radio, there's a house phone.
Yeah.
The phones that you can, the in-house phones. He could have sought out a hotel phone, which they have on every floor usually, and in the hallway and sometimes near the bathrooms.
Yep.
As a security guard, he would know where the house phones were located, and even emergency landlines that might be in the laundry or the housekeeping areas of each floor. But for whatever reason, after this security guard heard this gunshot, he went all the way back down to the lobby where the security guard post is located. He informed the head of security that there had been shots fired, or at least one shot that he knew of coming from the room that Jennifer was in. And it would be 14 minutes later at 8:04 p.m. that the security guard and the head of security arrived back at the 28th floor. The door was apparently double locked or bolted from the inside, but hotel security has a way of being able to unlock the door from the outside, apparently, which is what they did in order to gain access to Jennifer's room. And when they did finally get the door open, they found Jennifer dead of an apparent gunshot wound to the forehead. She was alone. She had been sitting at the edge of her bed, and once the gun was fired, she fell back and died. And since Jennifer Fairgate died 3 days after checking into the hotel, who she was and what she was doing in Norway and how and why she was killed has been a complete mystery. After the head of security cracked the door open, and while he did say find Jennifer's body in there, he saw it, or they said they saw it, he noticed kind of a sour or acrid smell, and his response to that was to shut the door and continue to wait for the police to come, who arrived 30 minutes later.
Yeah. And didn't he say he waited a while after he heard the gunshot to actually go downstairs?
I believe so. I think he listened at the door.
Yeah.
And none of that sits well with me. It really
it makes no sense.
It doesn't at all. So what do you think of this acrid smell? What does acrid mean to you? It's such a
it's a broad term. Like, it could, I mean, it might be the food. I mean, I don't know too many other things that it could be. I mean, obviously her body wasn't in any state of decomposition at that point. She literally just died. If this guy's story is true, but I don't know. I mean, it could be the food. I saw what you had written in the notes about what was it, the potato salad?
Yeah.
And like 24 hours out in the open, I mean, depending on the amount of potato salad, like I could see it having a sour smell, like because, you know, some of the ingredients, but at the same time, she didn't have like a huge quantity of it.
Mm-mm.
And I don't think 24 hours in a temperature controlled room like that's really going to create like some noticeable smell. And besides, what does that even have to do with anything? Like, this chick just, you know, according to you, shot herself in the forehead, which is a low statistic headshot. Not to get too personal, like a couple weeks ago, I just lost a friend of mine at work to that same scenario.
I saw your post.
It was you know, it was a rough situation. He was a great dude. We were good friends, and it was one of those situations where he just, you know, nobody saw it coming. He was the nicest guy, always in a good mood. But anyway, he decided to take that route. But it was a temple. It was a temple shot.
Okay.
Yeah, to the side. So because it's a more natural angle, I don't know of too many.
It's weird. I
I don't know I've never held a gun. Like, I've never fired a gun.
Okay, so a natural angle would either be, I know our listeners can't see this. So extend your right or left arm directly to the side of you, and one of the more natural angles is to just bend your arm at a 90 degree and do that.
Yeah.
And with your thumb pointing down in the barrel, against your temple, that's a natural angle. And then the other one would be with your thumb up.
The gun's upside down?
Yes.
Oh.
And so with George Reeves, the original Superman, I did an episode on him, and nobody could understand. It was an interesting episode, but people couldn't understand why the bullet would be underneath his body. And it's like, well, the natural angle from the entry and exit wound of his suicide, the bullet's going to eject behind him because it's the natural angle. So like you're saluting somebody, just put your thumb downward, and that's a natural angle. But if you, even doing it with your thumb up, like the opposite way with your arm beside you going through the temple, that's still a little bit unnatural. But the fact that somebody wanted to go well, because of the
model, okay, so he's saying is she went like this, the gun and the trigger and the thumb, like
yes, like that. Statistically, like me and you were talking earlier, I'm big on percentage, I'm big on statistics, and I know that there are always variables involved. And but statistically speaking, it's a low percentage for a female person to commit suicide in that manner, because there is always a vanity factor. Unless they're trying to prove a point or they're angry or something like that. But it's also super low percentage to do a gun to the forehead. Like if they're going to go front, they're usually going to go into the mouth like that. They're not going to reach their whole arm around to try to, put it into their forehead. I mean, I'm not saying it's not possible. There's always the variables involved.
The between the eyes is always something that somebody else did.
Usually,
I shot him between the eyes. It's always
absolutely
somebody. Nobody's ever done that to themselves.
Yeah, and it's usually because it's a personal thing. Because I've had the advantage in the last year working with the university team on learning certain profiles, which is cool. So like it's a more of a personal thing, because usually when that is the scenario, if you're killing somebody that way, it's because you want to look them in the eyes.
You mean
and you want them
between in the forehead?
Yeah. You usually want to have that eye contact with them, with you, whether they're the ones getting killed or whatever the case might be, and it's more personal. But that security guard, the fact that he's like, well, I heard this gunshot and I waited a few minutes and then I headed downstairs, and it's like, bruh, like, what are you doing, man? Like, get on your radio, get on the landline phone. Like, what are we doing? It just does not sit well with me, Roseanne. But my rant is over now about that.
It hasn't sat well with me, but it's because of him that I'm suspicious of all the other employees,
Yep.
Okay, so as I said, another complication of this case is the door was locked from the inside.
Yes.
The lock was engaged, and I believe this is a deadbolt that's right above the door handle inside the room. I believe this hotel also had a swing bar lock. That was pretty common on most ones. I don't think that one was engaged, but the one that is above the knob that you pull up and down, that one was. So apparently they can open this from the outside, the hotel staff. Do you know of that to be a fact?
I'm pretty sure they can. I think it's something magnetic. I'm not 100% sure.
Okay.
But I don't see why they couldn't. I mean, worst case scenario, they're going to break down the door.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I don't believe anything this damn guy says at this point. So unless there's like another witness statement, like corroborating his story and information, that's kind of where I'm at with it, because he's already shady.
I'm not that put off by the door lock. I was for a while, but because there's so many people who said, oh, you can just do this and you just do this trick and there's this, watch this video. Everything can be Googled now, but this is 95. It was back then. I do believe that they said that the hotel staff had the ability to unlock those deadbolts from the outside.
Yeah, they do.
With ease. So even if it was locked from the inside.
I mean, if you're a high-end enough hotel to be swiping key cards in 95, I mean, I can remember in the early 2000s still having keys, to hotel rooms.
Yeah. I don't remember when the change happened, but yeah. I'm not 100% sure how much or how little this door lock plays into this whole thing. The door being locked from the inside, though, is probably one of the main reasons why this was ruled a suicide.
Yeah,
so
agreed.
It's so shrouded in mystery right now. There's pictures of the crime scene that can be viewed online. Very good pictures.
Yeah.
They freak me out.
They're a little rough to look at for them.
Yeah. Fortunately, they photoshopped the major wound to her forehead. There's from what anyone has said and from what I've read, there's absolutely no evidence that there was ever anybody else in the room but her. Do you believe that?
The term that I would use would be there's no evidence that they know of. There's no hardcore factual evidence, but that doesn't mean that somebody wasn't. It just means that they didn't know about it.
Okay.
That's how I look at it. I mean, they're very much, there could have been 10 dudes in there, but
nobody was paying close enough attention.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they let this chick run up her bill for 2-3 days without even having her pay.
Well, that's why I think that she was paying cash and they were pocketing it, though. That's what
it could have been. It could be. It could be, actually. But why would she just click OK on the TV and not go down there and be like, hey, I have paid you guys, man. Why do you keep asking me for my bill?
The room showed no signs of a struggle. So her death was on her terms, in her own way.
Or it was by somebody that she knew and was comfortable with. And she didn't expect it.
That's right. Yeah, you're so smart.
No, I'm not, but as well as I do, me and you have looked into cases like this so many times. There's always that outlier.
All right. No signs of a struggle. But I mean, even if it was somebody that you knew, okay, you're talking to somebody you're comfortable with, and all of a sudden they're going to start, don't you think there's an escalation?
Well, maybe, unless it's, you think you're on good terms with somebody, and let's say you're sitting on the edge of the bed, maybe getting ready, with a guy or something, or a girl, or whatever the case might be. You're sitting on the edge of the bed and you just look up for that split second and there's a gun pointing at your forehead. You're not gonna, in the fact that the security guard allowed enough time to pass to where if somebody was in the room, they could have gotten away. They could have. But when he came back up, he still said that the doors were locked. So I just want that information corroborated, I suppose.
That's what he said. You have to believe the security guard, which I really not believing.
No, I'm not at this point.
Okay, so you don't think that the lack of signs of struggle is a big deal?
No, because unfortunately, I've seen it in some cases where somebody willingly gets in a car with somebody they know and they end up dead, and it's well, she would never get in a vehicle with some random person, and it's exactly, she got into a vehicle with somebody she had to have known, or where it's a surprise, maybe she didn't see the person right away, or it was literally like an intimate situation. Like maybe it was that Louis Fairgate guy or whatever, and or whoever she might have been hooking up with in the hotel in a different room or something. I don't know. Like I have so many questions. I'm just throwing stuff out there at this point.
I know. And there is another hotel room aspect to this too,
Yes. And the sign of a struggle, though, it really doesn't bother me. Like it kind of does, but it doesn't, because if it's somebody that she knew and she was comfortable with, and it was just happened within a few seconds, she's not going to have time to struggle.
I felt like the lack of the struggle meant leaning towards more she did this to herself.
And that could very well be. Mm-hmm. That could very well be the case.
And I'm not very big on that theory. In the end of the day, I don't think it was suicide, but that's one of the things that led me to believe that she did this alone and on her own, was that there was no fight.
My whole thing is like the fact that it could have 110% been a suicide, but it's also the other stuff that you pull into the equation that is just so odd and so weird that it's like, okay, so she went there to take her own life, but she's eating food. She's tipping really well. She ripped all the tags off of her clothing. She's, unidentified. She has fake false identification. Like, what are we doing here? Just go jump off a bridge, or, like, why are you going through this whole 3-day ordeal and pretending that you're somebody else that you're not, just to do self-harm? Like, that does not make sense to me.
But then you got to think if there's a mental illness component that we're not considering.
That is very true. That is a very good point.
Delusional behavior. Psychosis, schizophrenia, paranoia.
Yeah, definitely.
There's a lot of things that could be messing with her head.
That is a good point.
So, okay. One for Roseanne.
You've chalked up quite a few at this point.
So, her partially eaten plate of food, I shared a picture of it with you, and clearly you could see where the edge of the table is and how the plate is situated on the table, and you can see that the silverware is off to the left.
Yes.
The gun is in her right hand.
Yes. That is like me and you were talking, like that is not a thing. Like say if I'm eating a steak, I'm holding the fork in my left hand and cutting the steak with my right, eating with my left hand, but I'm also putting the silverware when I get done on the right side, because it's just the natural dominant hand.
Yeah.
I don't understand that. Why is it half eaten? Like, this chick has barely eaten anything in the last few days.
Yeah, I don't know. The food thing confuses me a lot. And then especially what was remaining in her stomach.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Throws another murky wrench into this whole thing.
Like somebody else was in the room.
Oh my God. Okay, so, but all indications was that she was alone. So, she was inside. Do you get the idea that she wanted to be in this room and she wanted to be left alone and didn't want to deal with anybody else?
To an extent, yeah. And I mean, I don't understand why she'd give a male's fake name with her fake name if there wasn't some kind of intention of her being seen with a male at some point. I don't know if that makes sense, but it
is a little bit elaborate.
Yeah, like if she wanted to be alone, just put the do not disturb on there right when you get in the hotel room. They ain't going to bother you. You pay your bill, they ain't going to bother you.
Yeah, but she was young too.
That's true. Exactly. That is true.
You have to take that into consideration. If she was a spy, she was like super on the young end of that.
Well, and that's my thing. Everybody is like, was she a spy? And I'm like, dude, this chick is 21 years old. Like, what were her teen years like to get trained to be a spy by 21 years old?
I know. That's another thing I'm hung up on. I don't think she's old enough to be a spy.
Yeah.
At the spy at this level that we seem to think that she is at.
Yeah, unless she was a spy who knew some stuff early on and like this was her first thing. I don't know. I have no idea.
Okay. now I want to talk a little bit about what she was wearing when she died. It wasn't until I started looking deeper into the story that I came to the realization that Jennifer Fairgate was not fully dressed when she was shot, at least not from the reports that I've gone over. She was wearing all black. She had on a black coat. It was a little bit bulky on her, and that was kind of the style. She looked a little bit like mid-90s chic, right?
Oh, yeah.
And yeah, it definitely, the year she died, I turned 21. So
I was 50.
I was very much like, and wait, 95? Yeah, I was 21. I was born in 74.
Well, you look good for your age, Roseanne. I'm just going to throw that out there. You're welcome.
You. Well, that might be the only positive thing my mom gave me being Asian. Asian people tend to age a little bit slower, but I'm still half white, so maybe I'll be a normal person.
You never know. We'll find out, won't we?
I guess so. So, but thank you. You're so sweet. So her clothing bothered me when I got into the details of it. She was wearing all black. She had on a coat. She had kind of a sleek and stylish look to her. She had on a black bra, a pair of thigh-high stockings, and then she had a pair of silky black drawstring shorts, and they look like pajamas. They could be kind of like styled kind of like loose boxers and with a drawstring, and they were silky. That's what she had on, and those are pajamas. It looks like a skirt in the picture.
Yeah, but how many people do you know go to bed in thigh highs? You know? Like, I'm thinking she's trying to seduce somebody, or she had some plans, you know?
That's what a lot of her clothing was intimate, like, stuff.
Yeah, for
bras,
sure.
She had like 4 bras. They were lacy and they were pretty. Yeah, the thigh highs, and she had another pair of stockings. The heels are not that nice.
No, they're kind of ratchet.
Yeah, they're
kind of bad.
They don't look like they're in good shape, and they were not. I in 1995 I worked at Payless Shoes, and so I know it was going. I thought back to my time there, and those are not like really nice shoes. They weren't nice at all.
Maybe she wasn't planning on having them on for very long, you know?
That's possible. And they look more for comfort than for stylish. And they seem to think that she was like this high-end, stylish, sleek, glamorous woman, but I didn't really think that.
She could have been a high-end sex worker, too.
I know. I saw that theory, and I didn't want to delve too far into that because I didn't really think that.
I don't really put much stock into it, but I mean,
I don't know why for some reason I hope not. I think the whole spy angle would have been so much more like intriguing.
Would have been way cooler.
Yeah. That would be so disappointing for the story.
But at the end of the day, like, even if she was a prostitute, like, is this just a guy who, like, that's his thing? He kills prostitutes, or, you know?
Right. Yeah.
I would like to see actually some other deaths of women in her age group in the area.
That would have been you're the number.
And now that I think about it, yeah.
So those silky black drawstring shorts really bug me. The thigh highs bug me. She had on a black lacy bra and a heavy coat thrown over all of it.
Yes.
And it doesn't look like Jennifer would have been able to, like, take her, if she was going into public, she would not be able to take her jacket off.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
She would have to be wearing it. And this is summer, right?
Yeah.
So it's not, I know that they're like north and cold, and it's not as hot as where like I'm living, but
yeah, that's true. But they acclimate, you know.
Yeah. She wouldn't have been able to take her jacket off if she was going anywhere else because everything she had on was undergarments.
Yeah.
I think
which is why I brought up that scenario that I did.
The sex worker.
So like, do you remember those old 80s like movies, you know, where a woman, you know, goes to seduce a guy and she just shows up, or a guy shows up at her place. She drops the jacket and yes. As much as I hate to say it, that's a scenario. Maybe that's why she had that thing on. She was expecting somebody and she was going to be like, hey, check me out without this jacket, you know?
Look at you thinking back to your favorite TV movie scenes when you were
80s, man.
kid.
Those cheap 80s movies, you gotta love it.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's not even realistic. Like, I'm 42 and I've never had that happen to me in my life. You know, it's like, but it's like all these movies, you watch those detective movies, and there's always that one chick that likes trying to seduce like the private eye or the.
I'm 48 and I've never done it. Not that I can remember.
Might have been one of those nights you just don't recall.
One of those nights. Oh, I don't think I'll walk around in like a trench coat and thigh highs.
No, absolutely not.
That would be really weird. Maybe in my own house.
Well, the thigh highs though, like that's what stood out to me though, is the lacy bra and the thigh highs. Because like if you're wearing those little silky drawstring shorts, what's the reason for the thigh highs? And
absolutely,
like,
there you go.
Other than to look, other than to look appealing, you know.
That those two don't go together at all.
No, they don't.
Not even to look appealing. It looks kind of silly, actually.
I mean, thigh highs are hot no matter what. Let's be honest, but
the shorts pulled over is weird.
The shorts is weird. Like, why wouldn't she be in like, you know, panties or something like that, or underwear or whatever? But yeah, it's just there's, I'll say it for the 10,000th time, there's so many things that doesn't make sense in this,
right.
in this case.
Okay. As far as the tags were removed from almost all of the articles of clothing in her room. The only tags that were left on was a tag on a jacket that would have been ruined if she had tried to cut the tag off on her own, and the same thing for a tag on a small green travel bag that was found in the room. It still had a tag on because removing that would also ruin her bag, her travel bag. The removal of the clothing tags suggests what?
That she's a spy, dude. That she's a spy. Either that or she bought her clothes super cheap, or they were already removed when she got them. If they were like visibly removed, I would assume that they were removed by her. And then you have the fact that she, you know, gave a fake name. I mean, like the Isdal woman too. That was her thing too. It was just
tags.
No tags, you know. And
Jennifer Fairgate, why did she do that? Was she trying to hide herself, her identity, her country of origin? Was this part of her big plan here at this hotel? Was she some sort of international spy? I didn't even really have the energy to get into the whole spy angle. I was hoping maybe you would think more about that, because I'm not.
I'll be honest, the fact for her being 21 and being multilingual is a very interesting aspect of that whole theory. But it's like, if that was the case, she would have had to have gotten into this when she was fairly young.
Maybe her dad or mom.
Could be, yeah.
Yeah. So of the clothing that, I want to talk about what was not found in the hotel room, which
this is interesting. Yeah.
So of the clothing that Jennifer had on and with her, the evening that she was found dead, there were several things that were no longer in the room or were missing altogether. There was no cash, no photo ID, no driver's license, no credit card, no debit cards, no keys, no plane tickets, no passports, no toiletries, no toothbrush, no hairbrush, no makeup bag, no handbag, no wallet, no makeup. Jennifer, everything that she had on, her makeup, and makeup-wise, it was very minimal. It was like a little bit of eyeliner, and that was it. Which feels really incomplete. Like I told you, I felt like everything felt interrupted. I feel like her getting ready got interrupted, because I would never just put eyeliner on.
Yeah.
Never. It's actually one of the last things I put on.
Really?
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
I did date a girl for several years where she was part Native American, and honest to God, she never wore makeup. All she wore was eyeliner. That was it.
Interesting.
Like, because her skin tone.
You have an argument with me.
Her skin tone and her complexion, like, she just didn't wear makeup. She didn't.
Yeah.
It just worked for her. She would just wear eyeliner, and that was it.
There is very That's okay. So that makes sense. If she was darker complected, you might not need it.
But this is Northern European. These people are white.
Yeah.
You know,
I can't. Maybe there's people out there who will say that they know of a scenario where they only put eyeliner on, but it's never been the only thing I've ever put on, and it's never been the first thing that I've put on.
Why do you put it on last?
Because I do the skin first.
Okay.
Yeah, get your face going, and then you put the smaller stuff on. You work the palette, and then the details.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I'm just saying.
I have 3 sisters and a mother, and I've never asked that question.
Why would you? Would you want to know?
I did not care.
I didn't think you would. So, but the fact that she had no other makeup on and that she had some eyeliner is very strange. And I don't know anyone to just put eyeliner on until I met now you and this person that you used to date. But they can the listeners can debate it on social media and tell me what they think.
Oh, for sure.
I have a makeup routine in the morning. It's not complicated. I'm not one of those that sits here for like 5 hours putting my face on. But I do face, and then I think I do like the eyes and then the smaller stuff, and that's it. I don't do anything. It's the last.
And that's okay. Now here's the thing. Like if you're traveling, do you take your hairbrush? Do you take your toothbrush?
Mm-hmm.
Do you take your keys, your handbag, your wallet? Like how is that not included in all that?
That's another thing that I felt like is interrupted. I think that there was some getting rid of stuff that didn't get completed, just like there's makeup that didn't get completed, just like there's getting dressed that didn't get completed, a meal that didn't get completed. Everything is not finished in this case for me.
That's very true.
So aside from the clothing that Jennifer had on, also found in the room were articles of clothing that would have been only worn on the upper body. Jackets, blouses, bras, things of that nature. When I first heard that detail, I really didn't think much of it, but now that I've had a chance to see what was exactly left in her room, I couldn't help but wonder, why does she have so much upper body clothing versus so few lower body articles of clothing? And she had only the shorts, the stockings, and then another pair of nylons. She had no underwear.
Yeah.
That is a big, huge problem for me.
Yeah.
She had bras, she had 4 bras, but no underwear. I would go with 4 pairs of underwear and 1 bra. Yeah.
Yeah, I could see that being the scenario. And when we were talking about all this before recording and stuff, and I don't know if I'm jumping the gun. Oh, actually, I am jumping the gun. So for the clothing section, I'll wait a minute until we talk about one of the witnesses and how she was dressed and her suitcase and all that. I'll chime in on the clothes scenario of what I thought, because I know I already told you earlier, but
what I'll say is, from my own experiences, especially when I was younger, if I traveled, I could pack 1 pair of jeans, and then I could have a black shirt, a white shirt, a flannel, cardigan. I could have all sorts of upper body stuff and wear the same pair of jeans.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. So that's a thing that could happen. So I can see packing more tops and bottoms.
But underwear?
Yeah, the underwear. That's where the whole, maybe you were talking about this possibly being a sex worker scenario. Maybe there was some sexual assault that happened and some DNA that got on underwear, and those things were collected and taken with the attacker.
That is a scenario I did not think about. That could be the case.
But then I don't know why that wouldn't account for the DNA that might have been on her or in her.
Well, I don't think when they ruled that a suicide and closed the case, I don't think they gave a shit about DNA,
No, they didn't, unfortunately. Okay, so some of the labels were carefully cut off stitch by stitch, while others were just sliced off. There was a gray blazer that was hanging in the closet, and the label, it indicated that blazer was from a German fashion house, and it was attached to the jacket in a way that it would have been ruined if somebody tried to attempt to cut it off. The only other thing the investigators were able to learn from that jacket is that it was sold in Germany, and that was it. The green travel bag that Jennifer had with her was also from a German manufacturer. In the closet, there was a cotton sweater and a long black leather jacket, and also hanging in there were some silky sleeveless tops. And to me, this silky sleeveless top, looks like it could be a pair matched to the drawstring shorts, like a sleep set.
Okay.
There was also another trench coat hanging in the closet. The green travel bag was sitting in an armchair in the room, and it contained one pair of women's pantyhose. It also had that silky black sleeveless tops and 3 more bras. She had 4 jackets, 1 blouse, 1 sweater, 4 bras, but only 1 pair of silky shorts, no trousers or a skirt. I kind of thought maybe perhaps she was a woman who was a little bit insecure.
Possibility, yeah.
Because the jacket she had on was very baggy, considering the intimate clothing she had. She was thin. She had, lacy bras, and I know those thigh highs are a turn on, but
true.
the huge bulky heavy jackets and sweaters to cover herself up made me feel like she was really insecure.
It's a good possibility. She was, unless it was somebody who she was more comfortable with, who she knew or something.
Maybe.
I don't know. The whole bulky coat mixed with the sexy attire.
Your 80s movies fantasies, like
it's in there, it's in there.
I get it. Now I'm seeing it. Now that you said it, I get it now.
The chick shows up in the trench coat. Blah, blah,
it
blah.
makes a slightly more sense. Okay.
But in all honesty, though, like, as far as we know, I mean, she was in her room every time that they would send that message to her.
Yeah.
Her TV or whatnot. So it's like, did she even leave her room that much, aside from, when housekeeping came to clean it? Or, obviously she knew housekeeping came because she put that do not disturb sign up that other time or afterward. But I'm curious as to how much she actually left her room after that.
Right.
So it's like, why are you getting all fancied up, but wearing a baggy overcoat unless somebody's coming to visit you, or because you're not really going anywhere.
Her haircut also feels very abrupt to me too.
Yeah, it's really weird. Like, yeah, even for the time period,
it just looks like something that was done really fast and hastily to try to cover something up.
Yeah, like somebody took a pair of scissors and just cut her hair.
And lopped it all off. And the color doesn't look natural to me either.
No.
It's very, very dark for, that short. I just, there's, her hair doesn't feel right to me either. So about her stomach contents. I don't like getting into this because I don't know a whole lot about the science of all this, but there's some dispute about exactly when Jennifer may have died because of the amount of digestion that had happened in her stomach. On her second evening in the hotel, we know that she ordered like a bratwurst and a potato salad, and what she didn't eat was photographed in the room, so we know how much approximately she had to eat. When she was autopsied, there was about 50 milliliters of undigested food in her stomach, including bits of sausage. If Jennifer had eaten that food when she received it, then it should have long been digested and moved along to other parts of her digestive system. There shouldn't have been bits of sausage in her stomach. So if she did eat the meal when she got it, and because of the undigested food, Jennifer then would have been killed way earlier than when that security guard heard that gunshot.
I don't understand the time frame there. It's I don't know. It just doesn't make sense.
I know. It threw me off, but it is possible that she got her food and she didn't eat it right away.
And that's true. And they probably had a microwave in the room,
So
she
even
just...
so, I mean, I'm not going to lie to you. We've had stuff happen. We've ordered food. We have pizza sitting out in the living room one night, and I've got my ass up in the morning and grabbed a slice.
Oh yeah, for sure.
That's really that's room temperature. I think she might have eaten the room temperature food.
She could have, or she could have gotten interrupted when she went to eat it originally, and
You
then
think she might have been killed earlier.
well, possibly. I mean, like the only person that heard this gunshot is the head of security.
Yeah,
She could have been shot, earlier on, and he just said that.
I stared at the crime scene pictures for a long time, and I tried to see if
that's healthy, Roseanne.
I know. If I was able to see any indication that this had been a death that happened hours earlier, and I just wasn't getting that.
No, the lividity and the decomposition wasn't there. I mean, did they even say anything about rigor mortis? Like,
no, nothing in the report. There's no information about it. She still looked like not that far gone to me in her pictures.
For sure.
I don't know.
No, I don't think she was killed earlier, but I'm saying like if she ordered her food earlier and she was getting ready to eat it and she got interrupted by whatever reason, and then once the interruption was done, she's like, oh cool, I can finally eat now, and then just decides to eat later on.
Now we're going to get into the bedding. This has a lot to do with whether or not there was a second person. If you don't believe there was ever a second person, then we might just jump over this, because I don't think there was either.
I don't.
Okay.
I don't really think there is.
We talk about the bedding, and for one person slept in the bed.
And it just bothers me why she would give a fake name unless she knew like she was going to sleep in the room alone, but she was meeting a man there, and if she was seen with a man, like I had said earlier, like she had to have some kind of cover or something.
Right.
So I don't think there was anybody else. So
I don't think so either. And so I think that all the talk about the sets of beddings and what was used and what wasn't used and this side of the bed and one person, two persons, I'm not, it could have been anything. I have rough nights by myself.
Yeah, I'm tossing and turning. Like there's sometimes I'm laying diagonal, corner to corner, because it's like this is comfortable right now.
Right. So from everything I read, it seems like Jennifer's death was treated as a suicide from the opening moments of this investigation. And once the general consensus was that this woman took her own life, then a case for this being anything but suicide would no longer be considered. And from the onset, it does seem like it could be a suicide. She was alone. The door was double locked from the inside. It was a gunshot wound to the forehead. The gun still in her hand, positioned in exactly the way it should have been positioned. You've talked a lot about your statistics and how women kill themselves and whatnot. Yeah. I'm always like on the outlier too. I always think about that just one situation,
Oh, for sure. And there's always exceptions and outliers and stuff. But I try to go by percentages like we were talking earlier. Right. But I will say that so like when you go into an investigation, I don't know how it works in other countries, but in America, you actually go into any death looking for foul play, whether it looks like a suicide or whatever the case might be. You always go in and the first thing you do is rule out homicide and foul play. Right. So like if you walk into a room, you do not want to look at a scene and just be like, oh, that was a suicide. You want to actually go through all the motions of a homicide investigation and rule that out. And that's how you end up to a suicide. So, I mean, I want to know, like, if the gun, say if it's a different case, like I want to know if the gun how far away was the gun from her forehead when the trigger was pulled, because there's going to be gunpowder residue. Is there gunpowder residue on her fingers? Is there any other prints or smudges? No prints on the gun. Yeah, like you have to go through the motions and act like every death is foul play and homicide, and you go through the motions and rule all that out, even if it does look like a suicide right when you walk in the door.
I think that the locked door probably threw them off. And,
probably, yeah.
And the way everything was set up. I mean, it really is convincing as a suicide, just generally speaking. We're not so easily convinced, but on the surface, that's what it seems like.
Oh, for sure, yeah. And it could be a suicide. I don't know. It's a weird case.
The gun was in her hand, and it was positioned in a way where the gun would be held backwards with her thumb in the trigger, and the gun is being kind of held in an awkward way, but still being pointed directly at the middle of her forehead. It's possible. Now,
oh, for sure.
She had to have been laying down when she shot herself in the head if she did that, right? Because the bullet went through into the mattress. Right?
Yeah.
And then for her, she's going like this, and then her hand lands here on her chest. With the gun, and the gun still holding exactly, there's blood on the gun.
Which would make sense, yeah.
But there's no blood anywhere else.
Exactly, which is weird.
That
I know.
And I don't, I've looked at hands holding guns that have killed themselves, and there's just a look to it. It just is. There's spottiness. There's gunpowder. There's blood. You see it. But this
exactly
hand, the cleanest hand I've ever seen holding a gun.
Exactly, and there has to be some kind of blood spatter. And like, to be honest with you, when you're holding a gun, pulling the trigger with your thumb pointed at your forehead, I'm not 100% sure how the gun would land on her chest. Like, I could see the gun in her hand landing on her, being on her face before going all the way down to her chest if she's laying down on the bed.
I mean, but when you do that, doesn't the gun fall out of your hand?
Usually, yeah. So there's a certain recoil factor. So depending on the caliber of gun, whether it's a revolver, semi-automatic, and then you have to look at the ejection angle of the shell as well. If it's not a revolver, that's a big thing with mafia guys. A lot of mafia guys, when they do hits, they'll use revolvers because it doesn't eject the shell, and there's way less clues when you don't eject a shell. And but even if there is some recoil, your arm is naturally going to go off to your right or left side, depending on which hand you're using,
Because they ruled this a suicide, and that means that there's really no foul play, that there's no criminal investigation. So that's kind of where this case sort of slipped through the cracks. As for the evidence inside the room, because this was ruled a suicide, they stopped the investigation, and many things in the room were not tested. So there's nothing to show that the bed linens were ever tested for biological evidence or anything like that.
That is so aggravating.
No fibers, no hairs, no DNAs, nothing other than from what they got from Jennifer. It's very aggravating.
Yeah, because gunpowder residue would have been a great thing, and like they would have been able to tell how far away the gun was from her forehead too, with all that.
Yeah, and according to reports, the bedding and the bed were thrown out just hours after Jennifer was found dead.
Come on.
Yeah. So even if anyone wanted to test for anything at a later date, it would be impossible to do so because all that stuff was in the garbage before sunrise the next day. So there's no denying that this investigation suffered because of the suicide conclusion being reached so early on. Evidence that would have otherwise been collected, preserved, or stored was not. Very few witnesses were ever interviewed by police. Security cameras that may have captured images were not collected. Evidence wasn't gathered from Jennifer's body Swabs weren't taken, fingernails weren't clipped, fibers weren't collected, tests weren't performed to see if there was any kind of sexual assault or sexual activity before she was killed. To further complicate things, nobody ever came forward to claim her. So Jennifer ended up in an unmarked pauper's grave a year after her death. And you want to know where she's at? You have to know where she's at, you know? You can't just, she's impossible to find unless you know.
So I will say with the gun, so the gun was a 9mm Browning.
Okay.
So a 9mm is on a lower level. It's like above a 22, but it's also below a 40 and a 45.
You're talking about the size of the ammunition.
Yes, yeah, the size of the gun. So it's a smaller caliber, so there's not going to be as much recoil. So if she would have used a 45, I could see the recoil being big enough to where her hand would have landed on her chest, but with a 9mm, I don't see that as a scenario. I could see the gun literally falling on her face afterward, or going off to the right or left side, whichever hand, she might have used. But the fact it was on her chest was weird.
You'd have to have blood on it, though.
You have to have some kind, unless it was legitimately pressed hard against her skull.
To contain.
Yeah. But
what about gun residue, like gunpowder, like all that?
Well, that's the thing. If they would have done some testing, they would have been able to tell whether or not that gun was pressed up against her forehead because of the gun residue. Like that was one of the big things with not to reference the George Reeves case again, but there was gunpowder residue. They can determine how far away the barrel is from the entry point of the bullet based on gun residue. So if they would have done testing, they could have been able to say, hey, this was pressed against her skull, or this was 8 inches away from her skull when the trigger was pulled. Right. And then there's gun residue on her thumb, and then her prints are the only ones on the gun. I would be way more comfortable saying, yeah, this is 100%. She took her own life if that was the case, but they just wrapped it up, man. And I mean, they got rid of everything. So there's literally no questioning anything.
I don't think there was anything on her hands, to tell you the truth, from the pictures that I saw.
Yeah.
Super clean.
They're going to be clean, but the gunpowder residue isn't going to show up like visually.
Yeah, it's really frustrating. I don't really understand how none of it, but there was so much blood on the gun too, though.
If there's blood on the gun, there should be blood on her hands.
The serial number on the gun had been removed in a way that has been described as professional.
Oh my God. Just like the clothes, man.
Okay, so that's where I'm not sure, because I hear getting rid of serial numbers, grinding it off, whatever. We could do these forensic tests and we could bring it back to life. They said it was done in a way that was this is international spy level type of shit.
I mean, honestly, either that or some straight up mafia shit. Because, I mean, that's professional stuff. I can go down to the south side of town and get probably a 38 revolver with no numbers on it for $150 if I wanted. But there's so much about her that's orchestrated. Just the fake names. Literally nothing, no ID, no makeup, tags off the clothes, some weird almost spy stuff,
Almost. So somebody didn't just grind these numbers off this gun, though. The serial numbers were gotten rid of by acid, and they destroyed it. That's why they couldn't, trace the gun. Yeah.
I mean, it makes sense. They can't even trace her or her clothes.
When the gun was found, the hammer was cocked. What does that mean?
Oh, shit, really?
Yeah.
When they found the gun, the hammer was cocked?
Uh-huh.
Okay, so when you shoot a gun, you cock the hammer and you pull the trigger.
And then it's uncocked.
And then it's uncocked. So that would suggest that somebody after she had done it, had cocked it again afterward.
And then,
unless there was only one round in it.
there was,
If she only,
I think it held, I don't know if it held 7 or 9, but 2 were gone.
if there were still rounds in the magazine
There were.
and that hammer was cocked, that means somebody cocked that hammer.
And put it in her hand.
Yep. If you unload a pistol like that, when you get it, when you just rack the whole magazine, the pistol's going to come back, and it's going to be back like you're cocking it, and it's going to stick back like that until you draw the magazine and pop it back. So if there's still rounds in the magazine, the only way that pistol is going to be cocked is if somebody did it. And I'm going to go ahead and assume safely that she did not, after that first shot.
Now that I'm reading this, because I wrote this, I didn't even think about it when I wrote. When the gun was found, the hammer was cocked. The gun was in Jennifer's hand with her thumb on the trigger. The gun had blood on it. There was blood spatter on the wall and the ceiling behind her.
So how is the bullet in the mattress?
I don't know.
Bruh.
There's blood on the wall. Oh my God.
I'm 100. She did not do that herself. If there were rounds in the magazine and that gun was cocked and there's blood on the pistol, none on her hands, blood on the wall behind her, but the bullet entry was into the mattress like she was laying down on the bed, that makes no sense whatsoever.
Yeah. What I came to the conclusion of all of this is that it doesn't look like to me that the gun was in her hand when it was fired.
And she didn't cock that thing herself.
Yes. Once this was determined to be a suicide, they weren't going to hold on to evidence all over things. They were going to dispose of it, which they did. But the gun, they managed to save. They wanted the gun destroyed, but for some reason it was not. And it's still being used as a successful destruction of a serial number using acid in like lessons, whatever they teach in school about this stuff. They were able to recover some of the serial number, but not all of it. Everything else was thrown out. Her clothes were thrown out, her jacket, her heels, her travel bag, her attaché case. The other valuable things like the jewelry she might have been wearing was auctioned off. And 2 months after she was laid to rest, everything was thrown away.
God, that is so disappointing. After the information on the pistol, I am fully convinced this woman did not do this to herself.
Yeah.
I will be honest, because guns don't cock themselves. Like I said, if it was the one bullet in there, it's naturally the gun is going to be back and it's going to be cocked, but the whole slide's going to be cocked back too, which it wasn't. So there's literally no way in the blood spatter on the wall behind her, but there's a bullet going through the mattress like she's laying there. I know I'm repeating myself, but I'm like, I have to talk to myself if I run it through my brain. Like that's how I work. But that gun is not, if there were still rounds in that magazine, there is 100% no chance that gun will cock itself after it fires that round. No way.
I've always, from the very beginning, I've always felt like the gun was placed into her hand.
It had to have been.
Yeah.
It had to have been. And somebody wasn't very smart if they cocked it, because that just makes it look 10 times worse, like shady.
They tried tracing the gun. I don't think that went. I didn't get anything important out of that. What did you think?
What, tracing the gun?
Yeah, it just...
Once the serial numbers are off, you're done.
Yeah. So Jennifer had a copy of USA Today in her hotel room that was addressed to room 2816, which is not her room. It's at the other end of the hallway that her room was on, which was 2805. Mm-hmm. They found a fingerprint on the bag. They weren't able to identify that. How do you think a newspaper from another room ended up in hers?
She had a guest. She had a guest over.
I have a different
I'm telling
theory.
you, she might have given a fake name, and like I think she had plans for in there, and there was a reason she was being so secretive. But I mean, whether somebody
had another room down the hallway, and she was like fraternizing with that person.
Honestly, though, is it out of the realm of possibility?
It's not.
Like from all that we know,
No,
because there were a lot of times she was not in her room, and she didn't eat that much.
Well, I'm not all that bothered or interested in a newspaper. There's been theories that perhaps this is the room where Louis Fairgate was put up in.
It could be.
He ordered the newspaper, and at some point he passed it on to Jennifer. What the newspaper also kind of does for me is that it takes away a little bit from the theory that this was the work of some sort of international spies or some sort of covert government intelligence agents, because I don't think that they would leave something like that behind to be traced to another room or to someone else. Where do I think the newspaper most likely came from? My best guess is that it's something that Jennifer grabbed from the lobby or from some common area on her floor. It's interesting to me that it's an American newspaper.
Yep.
That stood out to me.
And she was said to spoke English with no accent, apparently.
Absolutely.
And the fact that she's multilingual is a very interesting fact as well, especially for the age of 21.
Yeah. And who reads USA Today?
I don't even read the USA Today, and I'm from here.
I don't read it either. So it's interesting that to me that it was an American paper, and it makes you think if the person who wanted to read that paper had ties or business in the United States or was possibly American or working for somebody in the United States. So this goes back to our spy theory again, which I'm not totally dismissing.
I'm not dismissing it either.
I'm into it too. I get it. I just don't see any proof of it, and she just seems too young to me to be a spy.
That's kind of where I'm at with it. But I will say this, like back in World War II, I mean, they used to use young female prostitutes over in Germany, and they would have them seduce German soldiers, and they would slip them LSD in their drinks. And those girls were also young. They weren't necessarily spies, but they were taught a little bit of the craft enough to get by and get away with it. But they were still working for the U.S. government. They were getting paid under the table, but they were just regular prostitutes, in bars in Germany. And they were taught enough, they would get taught a bunch of shit for like 3 or 6 months, and then they were basically assets. So I mean, that's a scenario I really didn't think of until now, but I'm trying to think of what was going on internationally in 1995. I mean, I really don't think there was much going on.
Everybody was all cool and chill with President Clinton, right?
We were all enjoying grunge music,
great. I graduated from high school in 92. And I was like in college. I was like, this is the 92 until like I got pregnant. Life was good.
I graduated in 99. So I was like, the 90s were like my prime. Like everything was awesome, great music.
I'm sort of like a mixture. Like I was too young, like for everything in the 80s. And then by the 90s, I was a little bit too old, but I had a job, I had a car, I had money. And I definitely did not have that in the 80s.
No, like the 80s sucked, man. I mean, there were cool movies, but that's about it.
Yeah. So I really came into my own. I was a little bit younger because my birthday's in December. So when I graduated from high school, I was 17. It was 1992, and it was all about just like grunge and Fauna and Chili and Pearl Jam and Soundgarden. Oh my God. I was about everything.
The best music ever. I mean,
it's the best music
I
ever.
do. I'm a huge, classic rock fan too, but like I grew up in the 90s, man. So that was it. But there's like internationally speaking, I really don't think there was much going on.
No, there wasn't.
I could be wrong.
It was a very prosperous time. Bill Clinton was, at that time, he was president, and it was just a good time, you know?
Well, he was having good times too.
He was having good times. But no, it was easy. You know, when I got out of high school, it was 92. College, it was $5 or $6 a unit. That's all it cost to go to school.
Yeah.
I got an apartment. I think I paid $215 a month, if that. Yeah.
Good for you.
So, like, I was going, and I worked part-time, but I was making $4.25 an hour.
Yeah, that's true.
Oh my God. Anyway, okay. Jennifer was exhumed in 2016. When I had a lot of hopes for this case when I first saw this on Unsolved Mysteries back in 2020, but they can't do the genetic testing like we can here. It's not allowed. Yeah.
So yeah, that sucks.
Yeah.
Why can't they?
It's just
because of laws, or
it's laws. Yeah.
She's an unidentified person. What laws are there? Like, there's no family to contest it.
If you've heard this story before, you might be wondering, and this is what I was wondering when I brought this case up to you. What's going on with the DNA results? Everything's a little bit vague, but by now they should have been able to run some tests to figure out more information about Jennifer. It turns out that it's just not legal to do the things that have been done in the United States to identify unknown DNA through genealogical databases. So if the only thing that you've watched about this case, or anyone listening that's watches the Unsolved Mysteries episode, then you might have been left wondering, why didn't they do more extensive DNA testing? All they tell you in that episode is that she was of European heritage and may have been slightly older than the age listed on her hotel check-in information. Unsolved Mysteries really doesn't say that much more about it. But the reason is because they are not allowed to dip into genetic databases to try to identify unknown DNA. They can't do it.
Like, to an extent, I respect the privacy, but there's a term that I use that's probably it's a little bit more profane, but I'll just say, like, why would you want to shoot yourself in the foot like that? You know, like, I like I said, I respect the privacy factor of it. I get that, but like, let's get into the 2020s, you know, let's move up with the times here, and let's solve some unsolved cases. Like, no shit, she's European. I could have told you that. I don't even need any kind of DNA testing to tell you that. But I mean, I do agree she kind of looked older than her age, but I don't know.
The thing is that now the people who are interested in this case and want to know who Jennifer really is, they're sort of at the mercy of the laws of Norway. And we have to take into consideration that it's possible that the Oslo police really aren't going to want to roll back on their official ruling of this being a suicide.
Oh, for sure.
Nobody wants to be, second guessed. And
yeah.
Yeah. So it seems like what's going on now, for the most part, is the Oslo police are standing by their rulings, and
of course they are.
They're not going to budge. So,
of course they are. They're right all the time, you know.
The police theory is that this was a suicide.
If that gun was cocked, in the whole scenario with the blood spatter, the blood on the gun but not on her hands, I do not believe that was a suicide. She ain't gonna cock that gun herself after she shoots herself. It's impossible.
Right.
Somebody cocked that gun again.
You're probably right.
I could be wrong. But
when I wrote that in my notes, I didn't really know what the implication of that was.
That is the implication, that somebody fucking murdered her, and the only reason you're going to cock a gun is if you're going to shoot it again. And I mean, somebody could have been dumb enough. Like, I know in Norway, they don't really have that many guns around or whatever, even back in the 90s. And like, that's cool, do your thing. But like, they could have just been not educated enough. They're like, oh, I'm going to cock the gun and put it back in her hand, But there's no it's physically impossible for her to do that after she shot herself. And the blood spatter on the back wall, but the entry wound of the bullet going into the mattress like she was laying down, makes no sense.
Yeah.
And if she did, do it herself, like there would actually be a bruise, probably, like there would be a bruise around the bullet wound from the gun if it was pressed up against her skin. But it just
remarkably well for that to have happened to her, huh?
Yeah.
Weird.
And then the no blood on her hand but on the gun, I mean, what sense does that make? So I'm judging by the information at hand in the physical evidence, I am definitely not going to agree with her taking her own life. I can't do that consciously, knowing that the gun was cocked after she shot herself.
I'm not as big of a number person as you are, because I always think there's something could go differently,
No, for sure.
Situation. You brought up a couple of points regarding research and what numbers say about women and suicide, or just suicides in general. One of the things that stood out early on when we read that this was a suicide is that she was shot through the middle of the forehead. You can kind of see that when they're taking their own life, they usually aim the gun at their own temple or maybe in their mouth, right? I don't know of any situation where I've ever heard of somebody shooting themselves right between the eyes. When we get to these deviations from what the statistics say are the norm, it gets us thinking that there's definitely more to the story here that we just aren't going to be able to know. Do you think it was awkward the way that the gun was in her hand?
I mean, it's not so much awkward if she was holding it with her thumb or pulling the trigger with her thumb. But again, that shooting yourself in the forehead like that is just, like I said, like percentage wise, I just don't see it. I don't see it happening when there's other easier ways to shoot yourself. But again, like based on the physical evidence, like you're also not going to shoot yourself in the head and then cock the gun again,
I think it's quite possible that the evening staff at the hotel were embezzling money from...
It's damn good possibility.
Yeah. And I honestly really don't see any other good reason for anyone to have failed to check Jennifer Fairgate in properly unless they were skimming money from cash-paying customers. So they have guests come in, and they're going to have, the occasional customer that will pay cash. And in order to be able to pocket that money, the only thing they have to do is to provide this customer with the room. That's off the books, right?
Yeah, for sure.
The hotel has never officially has any record of anyone ever staying in a hotel because nobody was ever checked in. The customer gets their unofficial room because they paid cash for it. The front desk clerk pockets the money with the room being used off the records and off the books. And at the end of the day, everything will come out evenly.
Mm-hmm. So, absolutely.
And in order for this scheme to work, they need nondescript travelers to appear to have not much business going on in Oslo. Travelers who are alone, those who are trying to get a room for a couple of days in the middle of the week, innocuous people that don't attract too much attention or raise any suspicions. And most importantly, this traveler needs to be paying for their room in cash, otherwise their money can't be pocketed. So once the guest is in their room, those who are running the scheme need to just make sure that they control all of the communication back and forth between the guest and the hotel. And that would mean somebody from housekeeping would have to be in on this, somebody from the security staff. And all they have to do is make sure all is quiet, that this guest is taken care of until she checks out, and they get their rooms cleaned and ready for the next cash-paying customer. And it's almost like the perfect scheme, because the only thing that's really being lost is the use of the hotel room, which is, reusable. So in 95, I feel like this sort of stuff was easy to get away with.
That would have been an easy scheme back in 95 for
It
sure.
would have been for sure. 95.
I'm wondering why she decided to extend her stay, though, too.
That might have been, say she was suicidal and she went up there to contemplate ending her own life, and she was taking too long. Her contemplation was taking too long. She was having cold feet, or she was scared. And so they were kind of like, well, we got to get her the hell out of here. We need the next people. She's staying here too long. So they went in and extended it for her because she requested it, or for whatever reason. And they needed more cash from her, but this is where she stopped paying cash. Maybe she initially put up cash, but now she doesn't have any more. They want to get more money out of her. They need their room back, but they need her to get out too.
Yeah. That's a very good point.
Yeah, this is just this whole theory that played out in my head. So I don't know why Jennifer checked in to this hotel room and why her things were the way they were, and the things were missing. There was a lot of things missing. There are elements that tell me, like, okay, this could be a spy thing. It's weird enough to be that outlandish. And it would explain why she had nothing with her, why the tags were cut out of her clothing, why she used a fake name and fake information to check in, and why to this day she's not been identified, because whoever she was a spy for would take up that end of it as well, to keep her family silenced, right? To not report her missing and all that stuff. So getting rid of her personal effects, whether she took her own life or whether she was a spy or somebody did away with her, the getting rid of the stuff makes sense in all of those scenarios, whether she did it herself, if she wanted to just end her life and just be done with it, or her killers were getting rid of evidence, concealing her identity, and just got rid of anything. Nothing in the room, what was left though, what they left behind never helped anything in this investigation. They got rid of anything that could have been potential evidence.
Yeah. And within a couple days, everything else is gone.
Yep. Because they just thought that this was a suicide. There's a part of me that feels like Jennifer Fairgate went to the hotel there to not ever leave. I don't know why I get that vibe. I just do. But I just think it didn't go down the way that she planned.
It's a good possibility.
Yeah. I just feel like the security guard, the housekeeping, and the front desk, everyone seemed to let her slide, because they're the ones that have all the answers, the hotel staff and people, cameras, security cameras, everything. And they provided nothing.
Yeah, they literally provided absolutely nothing.
Nothing.
And the security guard is hands down the shadiest person involved that I can see, looking from the outside in.
I think that they all had a plan, and somehow they all kind of got in each other's way. I don't know if she ultimately went there to take her own life. I feel like she did. It just didn't happen the way she planned. There's a small part of me that thinks she's a spy, but there's no part of me that thinks that the way that it happened, that she did that herself.
Yes, that's where I'm at with it. Like, the circumstances surrounding her existence or her reasoning, whatever, is still questionable, but I do not think that she did that herself.
Yeah. So I'm in agreement with you on that.
All right, good.
Oh my God. I could talk so much more about this. I'm exhausted. I'm so sorry.
No, it's all right. I am too. I'm trailing off a little bit.
Well, I think we reached no conclusion.
Absolutely none. I think her death was not self-inflicted. That's the only conclusion that I can come up with, and that's based on the factual evidence that was presented. So the circumstances, all the other circumstances, I have no idea what was going on. Like, it's just so weird.
Okay. I'm going to think about this case more, and I'm going to come up with something to do with you next.
Like I said, I got a couple for you too.
Tell me which ones. I'm going to write them down.
Okay. It's actually, I got one that I've actually covered before.
Uh-huh.
It's a guy called Zygmunt Adamski.
Uh-huh.
And we can do that solely for your podcast if you want extra content. I'm pretty sure I still have all of my research too somewhere in Google Docs.
I do want to help you get some content up for you. I know you're super busy, and if we can do steps for mysterious circumstances, that would be great. Because I subscribed to your podcast, and it was I had to scroll far down to like a month ago before your last episode.
Yeah, it's been a little while for sure. But there's a couple that I have tucked back that I will send you in the near future. But Zygmunt Adamski is a weird one. I'm not sure if your listener base will be down with it because it's there's some weird aspects of supposed aliens and his. I mean, it's
they
weird.
Listen to me because they love me.
Well, dude, his death is seriously weird. It's still unexplained, like to this day. And like I said, I've covered it. You can listen to it if you want on my podcast, and that'll give you the overview. And then research is already done, and I mean, we can do more stuff with it. But
it's something that you've kind of been wanting to cover, but you don't get to it because you'd rather have somebody else do all the work.
Well, hey, you know what? That one, it's a freebie for you.
I don't mind doing all the research. I like writing, so and I try to be even better at it because I know I have to share this with you, and I don't want to sound like an idiot through all of this stuff.
No, you're fine. You're fine.
I find my mouse for this computer. Okay, I'm gonna stop the recording. Hold on.
Okay.
And let's do an outro real quick.
Yeah, we should probably do that.
Okay, well, thank you so much for talking to me about this case. I really appreciate it. I'm still confused. I'm not in any place like better than I was when we started. How about you?
I am right there in the same boat as you. I'm paddling with one oar, just going in a circle on this case.
Yeah, okay. Well, thank you, and I will get all this taken care of and edited and sent out to you so you can get this stuff up for your listeners as well. I know it's really long. I'm really sorry, but I appreciate you. You're such a trooper.
No, it's a great episode, and I appreciate you staying up so damn late, and thanks for suggesting it. It's a great case, and like, for somebody who doesn't have a podcast called Mysterious Circumstances, you have an eye for cases like this. So
thank you. I like mysteries, but for whatever reason, a lot of my listener base likes a beginning, a middle, and an end. You know.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Everybody has their preferences.
I love the mysteries though too, and I like how much we see the same stuff. We don't always agree, and then we turn each other on to different angles and ideas. That I think that definitely happened a lot here, and that's why I really love talking to you so much.
Yeah, we have a good rapport, and we always work well together, so makes it pretty effortless.
And you can't say no to me.
It's a true story, though. True story.
All right, I'm gonna end this recording now. Thank you. And hold on, let me push pause.
All right.
Now, if that wasn't a conversation that doesn't put you straight to sleep, then I don't know what will. We were literally putting ourselves to sleep. It was really nice of Justin to take the time to come and join me for another mystery. I made it a point to try and reach out to someone to work with on a collaboration with me because I know I haven't been doing very much and I've been pretty isolated since July. And you know, when you take chances, sometimes it pays off because I do have a really big announcement about another project Justin has decided to get himself into, but this time it's going to be a collaboration and it's not going to be true crime. It's going to be about something that both Justin and I have discovered that we both really enjoy. We literally just laid out this whole idea a couple of days ago, so once we get closer to actually making this happen, I will give you more updates. All right, many thanks once again to Justin Rimmel, host of the Mysterious Circumstances podcast, for taking the time to examine this strange case with me. Most of you know where to find Justin. He's super busy. You know this guy. He works full time. He has a couple of popular podcasts out there, including the one I just mentioned and the Safe Haven podcast, where he is working with a team on a real-time investigation into the unsolved murder of Judy Petty out in West Virginia. He's a father to 2 beautiful boys. He's a talented podcast creator and host. He travels to his listeners. He brings his talents on the road and puts on live shows for all of the people that really, really want to see him and support him. He's a veteran who I'm very grateful for his service, and he always makes time for us. And I just adore him. Again, thank you. All right, that's all I got. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Leave your comments and questions on all the social media places. Both mine and Justin's will be in the show notes. And until next time, sweet dreams.